It's Amanda, and it is time for our live Bible study. Today's Wednesday, and we are going to be in 2 Kings chapter 6. I'm actually really excited to talk to you. But, 2 Kings has been so much more exciting than I thought it would be. I don't know why. In my mind, it's just one of those books of the Bible that I just thought, it's got some stories in it. But I didn't think of it as so exciting. But as I'm going through it, it's really been good. I'm like, every single section that we're talking about seems super encouraging. So I'm really glad to talk to you about today's section. It is I think, one of the most miraculous and encouraging stories in the Bible, honestly. I say that word a lot, but I mean it when I say it. Good morning, guys. I see it popping in. So I'm going to go ahead and share the link. If you are new here, I'm going to say, as I always do, that you can follow our Bible study by clicking subscribe here on YouTube. I hope you will. If not, you can also follow me on Fundamental Faith on Facebook. It's a Facebook group, and I always go there and share a link, and I say join us for the live Bible study. And I just share a link there, because sometimes YouTube doesn't notify you as quickly as I would prefer. Hello, good morning. I do see some folks are being notified though, but Facebook does a really good job of notifying you right away. So I share it on Fundamental Faith, and I also share it on the Fundamental Home, which is my regular YouTube channel, but I share it on the Facebook page I have for the Fundamental Home as well. That way all of our friends there can come over here and join us if they're inclined to. So you can follow me on any of those places, and you'll get notified right away. I'm sharing the link there now. Just so you'll be aware when we are starting, because right now I don't have a definite time. I'm just doing it Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, trying to be consistent on that, and hopefully we'll get a regular time here soon. So, and today would have been a crazy day anyway, because schools were closed, and it was just a hectic kind of morning getting everything together. So it just would have thrown everything off. But I find that happens a lot around here with so many people doing so many different things. It just often happens that way. But anyway, so I've already shared the links, and we usually take the first 5 minutes for prayer requests. So if you guys have any prayer requests, let me know. I see Lisa's already said that she has an unspoken prayer request, so we will pray for Lisa. Okay, and she says she's praying for us as well. My husband and I are on 40 days of prayer. We have some things that we're praying about very specifically, and I just ask that everybody pray along with us, that the Lord would give us wisdom, and we would be able to figure out all of the things that we're trying to work out with the Lord. Not ourselves, because we can't do that. And I'm sorry if I'm looking this way, but I usually have the camera here, and it's here. And I'm trying to remember it, but I'm just in the habit of looking the other way. So anyway, Carrie has a also unspoken, so we'll pray for her. Okay, let's see. Arbor State says, ladies, please pray for my team and I as we serve the homeless community this weekend. May they be touched by the presence of the Lord, and may the glory go to Him. So, a lot to write down. So I actually do write it down, and I keep it in my notebook that I keep in my Bible, because I pray for them as I go throughout the week. So if you have any other prayer requests, we have about another minute, and you can share those, and then we'll get started. I don't know if you guys can hear it. My husband's off today. He's making coffee. The kids are up, getting around, getting ready. As soon as we're done with this, we have some cleaning and some other things we're going to do, and then this afternoon we're going to head out and go to Goodwill. We actually got sent a Goodwill gift card, and it thrilled my soul. So I'm very excited to do that, in case you can't tell. Jeannie says, pray for widows with minor children. I meet new ones every day, so we will pray for them, Jeannie. And just a few more seconds, and then we'll get started with a word of prayer. I don't know how your Wednesday is going, but here where we are, there's just a lot of kind of windy, sleety, just not nice weather. It's kind of dingy kind of day, but we don't want to let that get our spirits down. So we're going to start the day in prayer. Cheryl says, pray for Levi. He's 3 and he has a cough and fever. Okay. We'll pray for him. Layla says she has an unspoken. And also pray for her pain, that it will pass. Okay. All right, guys, let's open up with a word of prayer and we'll get started. Lord, thank you so much for bringing all of us wonderful ladies together this morning. And no matter what is going on in our lives, whether it's dingy outside or there's other complications, Lord, you're always there and we can always turn to you and bring all of these requests before you. I just pray that you would work in all of these different circumstances. We'll pray for Levi and his cough and his fever, Lord, that you would heal him very quickly. We'll pray for Layla that her pain would pass also, Lord, that you would just take that away as quickly as possible. Pray for all the widows with minor children that are struggling, Lord, that you would be a comfort and a help to them, uplift them and carry them through in a very special way and be an encouragement to them with us and others. Pray for Arbor State's homeless ministry, that they'll be touched by the word this weekend and that you would get all the glory, Lord, that they would just come to know you and it would be a great time for you to be glorified. We pray for all the unspokens, Lisa, Carrie, Layla, also our 40 days, Lord. You know everything behind all of those prayers and you can handle every single one of them. So I just pray you work in all those circumstances for your honor and your glory. Give us all help in all the ways that we need it. So Lord, I pray for all of these requests and I pray that you would handle them so we could just focus on you and your word this morning. I pray for the Bible study, that you give me exactly the words that I need to say and to be an encouragement to others here in your word. Thank you for the opportunity you've given us to come together. In Christ's name we pray, amen. Okay. Oh, you're praying for Rick's job. Thank you. I forgot to put that on the list. It's, believe it or not, that's part of my 40 days of prayer. So I kind of encompass that with everything else. So, okay. We are in 2 Kings chapter 6. This is one of the best stories in the Bible. Hands down. Honestly, I mean, there's a lot of miraculous and wonderful things, but I do think that what is shown here in the Old Testament just speaks to everything that happens throughout the whole Bible. So what we have here is we're going to start in the actual verses that we're getting to are in verse 23, but you got to know the whole story. You got to know the whole story. So we're going to read starting in verse 8. I know it's a lot of verses, but just bear with me. The Bible's always good, right? It's a good way to start our day. So it says, Then the king of Syria warred against Israel and took counsel with his servants, saying, In such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God said unto the king of Israel, saying, Beware that thou pass not such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. And the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him, and warned him of, and saved himself there not once nor twice. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was troubled for this thing. So the king of Syria was defeated, and he was upset about it. And he called his servants, and he said unto them, Will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? So which one of these people is supporting Israel and going against him? And one of his servants said, None, my lord, O king, but Elisha the prophet that's in Israel telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. It's like this prophet knows what's going on. And because the king thinks somebody's given away his information, it's really just the Lord working in the background. So it says, verse 13, And he said, Go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told to him, saying, Behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore he sent thither horses and chariots and great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about. So all these Syrians came and encircled the city, and they were coming after Elisha. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? It's like, what are we going to do? You know, they're surrounded. And he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with him. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. So what he didn't see, what was happening on a spiritual level, behind the scenes, in a different realm, so to speak, is that the Lord had his own army ready to do battle and take care of Elisha. Elisha was aware of it, His servant wasn't. And when his eyes were opened, he was able to see that they weren't utterly alone and defenseless. The Lord was protecting them. So it says, and when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And he said unto them, this is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I'll bring you to the man whom ye seek. But he led them to Samaria. And when it came to pass, when they were come into Samaria, that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha when he saw them, my father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? And he answered, thou shalt not smite them. Wouldst thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thy sword and with thy bow? Yet set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink and go to their master. And he prepared great provision for them, and when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel. So what happened was all these men came after Elisha, and the Lord had all of these chariots and everything set up. He was ready to protect him. And the way Elisha handled it was actually very interesting, because if they had tried to fight Elisha, the Lord was prepared to battle. But Elisha prayed about it, and he said, you know what, Lord, strike them with blindness. And that was not to, physically harm them. The goal was to take them and show them something even greater. He was going to take them over to Samaria, where they knew that they could see it. They couldn't see the Lord's host of armies, but they could see when he took them to Samaria that they were in a different place, and there was another king, and they were surrounded by people that were not their own, and they were powerless. So they kind of had that same situation they'd set up with Elisha kind of come back on themselves, right? So they knew they were powerless, and in this place, under the authority of this other king in Samaria, they were at their mercy, and they could have done anything to them, including kill them. But instead, he answered and said, let's treat them well. He said, if you've taken people captive by the sword, you would treat them well. We're going to do the same thing. He's like, give them food to eat, give them some water, and send them back to their master. He treated them with kindness and generosity and sent them back. And because he did this thing, the end of the story is that when they had eaten and drunk and they were sent back to their master, the people from Syria never came back into the land of Israel. So they didn't come back in because they were treated so well. They were like, they obviously, a couple of things. They knew the Lord was in it. And number two, they were treated nicely. So there was no reason to go fuss and argue with these people. So lots of great truth in this story. Obviously, one of my favorite parts of the story, which has nothing to do with food, is just this idea that there are things going on behind the scenes on a spiritual level that we don't know and we don't understand. And even when there are circumstances that we're facing that look tremendous and look difficult and look like we're surrounded, there's nothing we can do, there's no hope, the Lord is still working. He's still got it under control, and we don't need to worry about it. He's got everything taken care of. So that is one thing that has nothing to do with food, but I think it's one of the best stories in the Bible, because I think a lot of the struggles that we get into are because we are trying to handle things because we feel like we have to handle them, because we're just looking around scrambling, trying to sort things out. And the truth is the Lord's already got it. He's already got it. We don't need to worry about it. So now we get into the food Bible study part, because of course this Bible study in particular is about food and our relationship with it. So I'm going through the Bible looking for any verses that have anything to do with food, and just kind of seeing what it says, just doing a daily devotion, considering it, and seeing how it, what kind of wisdom I can take from it, and how I handle food in my day-to-day life. So the verses that have to do with food are 22 and 23, and that's where they actually take the people in captive and they feed them and send them back to their master. Again, number one, so God could be glorified, and number two, so they could see them that they were kind and had the opportunity to treat them badly but did not. So we actually talked not too long ago about making sure we're using our food in such a way that we're sharing it with others, being generous with people in need. And I think a lot of times we do that, or at least we feel like we should do that, and we have no argument there. But in this case, you're talking about feeding your enemies. And I don't know that we all necessarily feel good about that. In fact, I think a lot of folks, this is something I've seen discussed on different social media areas. Everybody's cool with the idea of feeding and taking care of the poor. But one of the things people argue about all the time is who is poor, and whether or not those people who are poor deserve to be fed for one reason or another. They want to say, if they've committed these acts, then we shouldn't feed them because they're guilty of this, and they should have known better, so we're not going to feed them. Yeah, I think there were all these rules about whether or not people should be on food stamps if they failed or passed drug tests, or whether or not they were trying to get jobs or not, and all of those different arguments. And in terms of the government, I'm not going to go there, but I'm talking about in terms of Christianity, in terms of what the Bible says about how we treat other people as Christians, not because we ought to, because of the letter of the law, but because of how the Lord will be glorified and how we have a job to love others. And I think from that perspective, exactly, Jeannie, we should always be feeding people. We are often quick to say, like this king, should I smite them? Should I just get rid of them? Should I do away with them? When the man of God's response should be, how can I help them? How can I be kind to them? How can I be loving to them? And then show them God and his glory through this act. And so you have to think about it in terms of your own life, what kind of opportunities that you might have in order to take care of people. Now, I just talked about it in the broad sense for our country, but I think personally as individuals, we have opportunities to do that as well, feeding our enemies and I'm saying feeding our enemies in the grander perspective, but feeding people that don't necessarily deserve it, I think is probably a better way to put it. So, there's a number of ways you could look at it. Taking it in the extreme, because these were enemies. They'd come to kill them, or at least get Elisha. You can think about your own enemies. I think everybody has enemies of some kind, and what is it that you could do for them that is an act of kindness, including using your food. I think I mentioned it before. There was one person that wasn't necessarily my enemy, but we just didn't have any kind of a closeness. And in fact, I kind of thought that they might have, their personality just might have not been a good match for my personality. But I always want to be kind to people. And this was somebody who was a member of one of the churches that we were a member of. And so I had heard that they liked a certain treat that I actually know how to make and make fairly well. So I made something for that person, and I made something for their husband as well, and it completely changed our relationship, completely changed it. And it was just one little small act, but just making the effort to do something kind to them, I think really kind of opened the doors where it had been kind of shut. And we never had any argument. There was never anything. It was just one of those things that was just kind of, you know what I mean? But I had to make the effort to do that. And I think it went a long way to bridging a gap. And food is fun that way. Food can do that. Food can bridge a gap where it seems like there is no connection. Here you're talking about bitter enemies that were coming to kill somebody, and they feed them and give them water, which it seems like a small act, take them back home, and then look at that. There's no more fight. There's no more fight in them. And how many times, I'm married, obviously. How many times, I cannot tell you that I've fussed with my husband, and I'll make him lunch or I'll make him dinner, and just the act of me making him dinner calms me down because I feel like I'm doing something for him, And then I think him eating what I've made for him, I think calms him down. And then we come together and there's peace. Food has a way of doing that. The Lord made it to do this wonderful thing. Let's see. Oh, everybody's talking about food drives. Allison says, I donate to the food drives. It's one of the ways I can help. Plus, I don't think it can be used to harm someone. Post office food drive is coming to food. Yes, food drives are a great way to do it. You don't have to wait, by the way, for food drives There are a lot of great organizations out there that are constantly in need of food. And again, I think sometimes people get caught up in the idea of whether or not people or organizations deserve the food. Um, I want you to be wise. I want you to vet out who you're giving things to. But if there are people, if there are organizations in your community that are feeding people in your community, and you know they're feeding people in your community, then purpose to give them something, purpose to share with them. I think I said this before on the other message, and I think it's worth repeating that sometimes we'll just say, oh, well, you have this idea that you want to be giving and you want to be sharing, but it's not going to happen unless you actually purpose to do it. You have to be intentional. You have to set aside money in your budget and say, this is the money that I'm going to be giving. It's not just going to be like, oh, I have extra money, I think I'll give it. That doesn't usually happen. So if you are really concerned about people being fed, then you have to put it in your budget and make it happen. Same thing with this whole idea of feeding your enemies. If you have someone that you really want to mend a relationship with, then you have to purpose to do something to mend that relationship in terms of food. I have another person who's my friend, and we had a disagreement, or it wasn't even really a disagreement. It was really just a miscommunication about something. And we went out and had, I think it was like a snack. Like we went and had coffee or something, and we just talked about it. And just calling her and saying, hey, how about we get together and have a cup of coffee? And there had been miscommunication, and her being willing to do it, and then just going and sitting together and working that out, finding that there really was nothing to even be upset about, that it was just like it was miscommunication. All of that was because of food. Food was the bridge between us. And food has that power. I don't know why. I can't explain it, except that we all need it and we all love it, and it has the power to make us happy. And it changes attitudes, and we can use it that way. So often we use food to just feed ourselves and keep ourselves isolated, but it really is something to make connections. And you can think about this too in terms of how people connect in a romantic sort of way. I know we're talking about feeding our enemies here, but you can even think about those connections that you make with food. I mean, think about how people, build relationships. They go on dates, and what are those dates? They're usually, let's go out and have something to eat. And the reason why people go out and have something to eat on date is because they're trying to build a connection. They're sharing a table, they're sharing food, and they're sharing of themselves. And so you can even see how naturally it comes to us to use food as a way to bridge gaps with people that we want to build relationships with. So then you have these other people that you kind of maybe don't want to build a relationship with, but should build a relationship with. Best to get food involved. Best to make it a meal, make it somehow do something. That's why churches have fellowships and different kinds of get-togethers where there's always food around it, because they're trying to build relationships within the church and make sure people are close and having fun together. And food is the best way to do it. Food has power, and it's good power, and we should use it in such a positive way. Arbor State says there are a large number of negative opinions specific to the group of people that she serves. Again, she serves the homeless. But the Lord loves them and values them, and she loves to be a part of blessing them, and that's entirely true. Whoever it is whoever you have in your mind that you have issue with, that you're struggling with dealing with, everybody has someone almost right, all the time. There's always somebody that you can think of that when you think of them, you're like, ugh. But you could think about how you could use food in order to build that connection with them, at least build a bridge. At least all of a sudden Syria and Israel didn't become best friends, but it stopped the fighting. It stopped the fight, stopped the war, so to speak. So if nothing else, you don't have to be best friends, but just stop the warring. Make it a place of kindness, and let the Lord get the glory for that. Layla says, here we have shopping carts standing next to selected stores, and we donate when they're there. And that's another great way to do it. There's lots of great ways. But I'm just trying to show you the immense power of food and how it can be used to build bridges and make connections, and also mend some broken relationships. It's there, and the Lord is using it to make these miraculous relationships work. I can't even, it's so much bigger, so much bigger than I actually could even give words to how food is used. I really think we underestimate the power of food, and this is one of those things when we talk about food and our relationship with it, sometimes we don't appreciate what it is. You know, we're just shoving stuff in our mouth without giving any thought to what we're doing. But really it has power to do some amazing things. And that's why families that eat together around the dinner table are usually closer, because they're sharing this thing every day and it's building their relationships. So anyway, so Bible study point of it today is food. You can feed your enemies, you can build relationships, you can mend fences, you can stop wars. How are you going to use it to deal with your relationships with other people? I don't know. You can think about that. Think about in your own life, whatever struggles you're having, how you could use food to help with that. So just a thought for today. I hope it was helpful to you. We will be back. We are still going to be in 2 Kings chapter 6 Friday, Lord willing. So I hope you guys will come back and hang out with me then. Don't forget to pray for the prayer requests. And Rick and I will be back tomorrow night. Every Thursday, we're back on Thursday nights with our weekly Bible Q&A, Bible study. And so if you have any questions, let us know, and we will talk about that tomorrow night. So anyway, that's it. You all have a wonderful Wednesday. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you later.